All right, my next video on my JS22 guitar project. I reviewed this in the last video, and overall, just a fantastic guitar at a great for a great price. Very enjoyable to play, well made. A few little issues with it that I'm not perfectly happy with, and I want to convert this guitar to a short guitar scale length. So that's what this project's about. Um, First thing I took a look at, though, was the thing I'm mainly unhappy about with this guitar, which is the finishing on the body, which is quite rough and really feels almost unsanded in areas, especially where the body's been carved away. So I took my sanding sponges here and did a little bit of work. I started with a fine grit, about 180, and moved up to 320. I wanted to be really gentle with it, having never worked with this wood before. And it turned out actually very nice. Where I did the sanding is a little hard to tell from the photo, but it's extremely smooth. It's practically glass-like. So this wood sands very, very nicely. It's very hard and dense, so it's going to take a little bit of work to improve this. Once I disassemble the guitar for the rest of the project, I'll sand the entire body and refinish it. And I think it's really going to be spectacular once the sanding is properly done on it. So this wood determined was NATO, N-A-T-O. It's a tropical wood. It's fairly dense. It's well regarded as a guitar building wood. I never had any experience with it before, but it's gonna make for a very nice looking guitar, in my opinion. So we'll see how that comes in future videos. Bought a few things for my project. As I mentioned, I'm converting this guitar to a shorter scale guitar neck length. And this is based on my experience back in the 90s. I played a Fender Music Master with a 24.5-inch guitar scale. So a bit shorter than a standard guitar scale length. And for me, the reach on it's much easier to play. Really enjoyed the feeling of playing that guitar, the ease of playing that guitar suited me very well. So I've always wanted a short guitar scale length again, and but I really like the Jackson guitar, so I'm gonna hopefully marry the best of both worlds there. One thing I'll need to do though is to reposition the bridge. So it's going to be a different neck, and the shorter scale length will require a shorter distance between the bridge and the end of the neck. So that bridge will have to be positioned closer to the neck. I want to use this acoustic guitar bridge to test the location of the bridge before I make some permanent changes to the guitar. Following the principle of measure twice, cut once. I have done the calculations about where it should be, but sometimes, you don't consider some of the practical implications of your project until you start doing it. And if you've made permanent alterations to your woodworking project, then that can be pretty difficult or unfortunate to have to correct. So, very cheap way to test out the bridge position without making any permanent changes using this bridge. I bought a Telecaster hardtail bridge that'll accommodate humbucker. This is quite cheap again, 15 bucks, I think. It's got roller saddles, which I've never used before, but certainly seems like a good idea. I'm not crazy about the patterning on the saddles, but it might be okay in the end. The patterning on the rest of the bridge, it's sort of hard to tell if that comes off, can be cleaned off, or is that permanent part of it. The photo overemphasizes its actual appearance, so it's much more subtle in person than it is in this photo, but we'll see how that works out in time. Got a set of feeler gauges, really incredibly helpful tool for working on guitars in so many different ways. My old set had pretty much fully corroded, so it's time for a new one. Quite a cheap tool and just so helpful. I got some micro mesh pads. These are for polishing, and I've seen Apparently, they're quite good for polishing frets, so we'll see how that works out. They start at 1500 grit and they go up to 12,000, so it seems like they should do the job. Got some radius gauges, which can help to set the string action to keep it consistent across the curvature of the fingerboard. And I got these sanding sponges that I mentioned previously. Really a nice tool to have for a variety of projects and purposes. They're foam, but fairly firm foam, so they don't follow contours evenly. So, for example, when I was sanding the contour of that guitar, even though it's a relatively subtle curve, it doesn't apply an equal pressure across the area. It won't fold or follow those curves without some force, and so you end up sanding unevenly. So just something to keep in mind. And when I refinish the entire body, that's something I'll have to take some care with. I'll probably use different sanding approach. Got some strings for the new project. DR strings. Never used them before, but good enough for Daryl. Should be good enough for me. Slightly heavier gauge than what came on the JS22 originally, which I believe was 9 through 42 gauge. Sort of ultra light and a little too light for me, really. The shorter scale neck, the guitar strings will be a bit more slack, so this might even still be too light, but we'll see how that works out later on. And that's what I've got for this update. Again, JS22 is just a fantastic guitar. The price, the quality of the materials, everything you get for what I paid, 160 bucks. Incredible deal. Great guitar. So that's all for now. Hopefully someone found this helpful, and I'll see you next time.